Hello, my dear friends. Take a slow breath and allow the world around you to settle into a softer quiet. The night is calm, the air is gentle, and you are here to drift into a long journey across 1,000 years of medieval royalty. A journey that will not hurry you. A journey that will unfold like warm candlelight glowing in an old stone room. Tonight, you are simply a traveler moving through time with no weight, no responsibility, and no noise, only the smooth, soothing rhythm of history whispered slowly. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of a vast timeline, stretching from the dark, quiet centuries after Rome fell, all the way to the late medieval age where kings and queens lived inside grand castles with high towers, echoing halls, and carefully guarded secrets. You are not rushing through this world. You are gliding softly, gently, without effort, as if guided by a quiet breeze floating through the corridors of time. Let the sounds around you fade. Feel yourself settling deeper into comfort. And now, let us begin this long narration. A calm, peaceful walk through 1,000 years of medieval royalty. The world is dim. Early morning mist hangs above fields that have not changed for centuries. Wooden halls of early kings stand on small hills, their roofs covered in thick straw, their walls smelling of smoke and old timber. The royalty of these early centuries lived quiet, simple lives compared to the grand palaces we imagine today. Their wealth is measured not in gold but in land, in loyalty, in the people who gather around their fire. You may picture one such hall rising slowly from the mist. The sun is just beginning to glow, but its light is pale and soft, barely pushing through the morning fog. Inside, a king sits wrapped in a heavy wool cloak, listening to the quiet crackling of the hearth fire. His crown is simple, more like a metal band than a glittering jewel. His court is small, advisors, warriors, a few servants moving quietly with bowls of porridge and warm bread. Nothing grand, nothing extravagant. The early medieval world moves slowly, guided by seasons and survival. And as you watch this scene from afar, imagine no sharp sounds, no battles, no chaos, only the gentle hum of early royal life, calm footsteps against wooden floors, soft voices murmuring in the background, and the warm, dim glow of firelight swirling across the ceiling. You drift a little deeper now, carried gently into the simple rhythm of the early Middle Ages. As centuries pass, you glide forward effortlessly. You do not walk. You float. You drift. Time moves around you like a slow river. You find yourself approaching the 8th century, where royalty begins to settle into more stable kingdoms. Stone replaces wood. Castles slowly rise, fields stretch wider. People gather in small villages protected under the king's banner. Imagine standing on a quiet hill overlooking a valley where a newly built stone keep sits proudly above a winding river. Torches flicker along the walls, their flames dancing softly in the night breeze. Inside, royalty is beginning to live with more ceremony. Quiet rituals, gentle prayers, slow meals where nobles speak in calm tones about alliances, land, and the harvest. Nothing is rushed, nothing is loud. Everything feels steady, measured, and slow. And as you listen, as you imagine these scenes, allow yourself to sink deeper into this peaceful world. The night grows softer around you. Your breath becomes slower. Your body becomes heavier. Medieval royalty continues to evolve, but your place in this story remains gentle and still, like a quiet observer drifting under moonlight. You are not here to judge, to analyze, or to remember facts. You are here simply to listen, slowly, calmly, as 1,000 years of history pass by like a soft breeze. And as time shifts again, you begin to drift toward the heart of the medieval world. An age of castles, queens dressed in long silk gowns, kings wearing fur-lined cloaks, banquets lit by hundreds of candles, and royal courtyards echoing with the gentle clatter of horses' hooves on stone. But we will enter that next phase slowly, peacefully, letting your mind settle deeper with each word, each image, each soft detail. Tonight, history is your lullaby, and this is only the beginning. As you drift into the next century, the world around you becomes a little clearer, a little more defined. Stone walls rise higher, towers become sharper against the sky, and the soft glow of lanterns rests along long castle corridors that echo gently when footsteps pass. You are now entering the central centuries of the medieval world, a time when royalty begins to feel a deeper sense of structure, formality, and ritual. Yet even here, in these grander halls, the atmosphere is not loud or overwhelming. It is calm, disciplined, steady, and full of slow rhythms that match the quiet of the night around you. Imagine yourself gliding through a tall stone gate. The heavy wooden doors stand open, not with force but with a still dignity, like guardians who have watched centuries pass. You slip inside without making a sound. The air smells faintly of wood smoke, beeswax candles, and the gentle dampness of stone. Inside the courtyard, life moves slowly. A stable boy brushes a horse with long, steady motions. A servant carries folded linens across the yard, walking at an easy pace. Two guards speak softly, their voices blending with the distant trickle of a fountain. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is sharp. Even the wind seems to move with intention, brushing gently against flags fluttering above the towers. Royal life in these centuries is shaped by order, not the loud order of commands and trumpets, but the quiet order of routines repeated day after day. A king begins his morning with a calm meeting in a chamber warmed by a small fire. A queen moves through her rooms with grace, organizing textiles, reviewing household tasks, speaking softly with attendants. There are no rushing carriages, no chaotic sounds, only the soft, steady movement of people who understand their place in this slow, structured world. Now imagine entering the great hall, not during a feast but during a quiet hour when the room is nearly empty. Sunlight streams through narrow windows, casting long lines of light across the stone floor. Wooden tables stand neatly arranged, their surfaces polished by years of hands and cloth. A single servant sweeps the far corner of the hall, the broom making a soft whisper as it moves across the floor. The large hearth holds only a few glowing embers, spreading a warm breath of heat into the vast space. Here in this peaceful emptiness, you can almost feel the flow of centuries. Great banquets will happen here. Long discussions of land, marriage, and alliances will echo through these walls. But right now, all is still. All is calm. All is quiet enough to lull the mind toward rest. Let yourself drift deeper into that silence. Feel it wrap around you like a warm cloak. Now imagine rising gently from the hall and drifting through the upper chambers of the castle. These rooms are smaller, warmer, more intimate. A queen sits quietly by a window, her embroidery stretched across a wooden frame. She moves her needle slowly, almost meditatively, stitching golden thread into a deep blue cloth. Each movement is precise, but soft. Her breathing is slow. Her eyes are calm. A lady in waiting reads softly from a manuscript nearby, her voice low and soothing, like a gentle hum that barely rises above the quiet of the room. This is how much of medieval royal life unfolds, not in dramatic flashes of action, but in long stretches of quiet routines, thoughtful conversations, and slow, intentional work. History often remembers kings and queens for great wars, marriages, or decisions, but their daily lives were full of stillness, candlelight, and steady rhythms that make perfect company for a night of rest. Allow your mind to wander softly through these chambers. The air is warm and gentle. The sounds are muted. Everything feels like it is wrapped in thick velvet, calm, steady, peaceful. As evening comes, torches are lit along the walls of the courtyard. Their flames flicker in the growing dusk, casting soft shadows that dance slowly along the stone. The castle settles into its night rhythm. Servants finish their last tasks. Guards take their positions along the ramparts. A hush spreads through hallways and stairwells. A distant owl calls from the forest beyond the walls. Inside the royal chambers, the king and queen prepare for the night. A maid adjusts the heavy drapes to block the cold. Another stirs a pot of warm, scented herbs meant to calm the senses. The glow of a single candle fills the room with a golden softness, while the rest of the castle grows darker, quieter, and more still. You can feel yourself drifting deeper with them, into the gentle rituals of bedtime in a medieval world, where everything slows down, the air grows calm, and the night becomes a quiet companion. This is the world you walk through now, a world where time drifts softly, where royalty lives in steady rhythms, where every step echoes gently in long corridors lined with stone. And as you float deeper into this century, the night around you grows softer still, guiding you slowly toward the next chapter of this long, soothing journey through 1,000 years of royal life. As the centuries drift forward, you find yourself moving into a slightly different world of medieval royalty, a world where castles grow taller, where routines become more refined, and where daily life settles into a rhythm both elegant and quietly demanding. The world outside is still wild and unpredictable, but inside these stone walls, life unfolds with a calm, deliberate grace. Everything feels slower, softer, almost as if time itself has learned to breathe more gently. Imagine for a moment beginning your day inside the private chambers of a royal residence. There is no alarm, no loud command, no rush of servants running through the halls. Instead, dawn enters quietly through thin windows covered with embroidered drapes. The light comes in soft and golden, falling onto carved wooden chests and polished floors. A faint scent of lavender lingers in the air, placed there the night before to calm the royal household as they drifted into sleep. The queen wakes slowly, her breathing deep and steady. Her maid moves carefully, drawing back the curtains one layer at a time so that the room fills with light without startling the senses. Warm water is brought in a basin, steam rising gently into the cool morning air. The queen washes her face with slow motions, the water dripping back into the bowl with a delicate sound that blends perfectly with the quiet of the room. Breakfast is simple and calm. Warm bread, fresh honey, soft cheese, and a cup of spiced drink to ease the body into the day. Nothing is loud, nothing is rushed. Even the clink of metal cups is muted, softened by cloths that have been placed beneath each dish. Down the corridor, the king begins his own morning. He sits at a long wooden table, a map rolled out before him. A single candle burns beside him, though sunlight already fills the room. His advisor speaks in a low, steady voice, discussing matters of land, trade, or alliances. But the conversation is slow, thoughtful, more like a gentle exchange than a political debate. The king listens, pauses, and responds with calm intention. There is no raised voice, only patient strategy shaped by the quiet hours of early day. As you move gently through the castle, you see servants sweeping the halls, their brooms gliding softly across the stone. A scribe sits near a window, copying lines of text with careful strokes of ink, the tip of his quill making tiny, rhythmic sounds. A maid arranges linens in the upper rooms, her steps light and measured as she moves between wardrobes and chests. Each person belongs to a different part of the castle's daily rhythm, but all of them move with an unspoken harmony that keeps the great household breathing smoothly. Outside, the gardens are waking. Dew clings to leaves and petals, sparkling calmly in the morning light. A gardener trims herbs with slow, precise movements. A pair of birds dart through the branches, their song soft and fluttering. The air is filled with the fresh, cool scent of damp earth and early flowers. The royal family sometimes walks here in the morning, their steps quiet on the gravel paths, their robes brushing gently against one another. There is a sense of peace here that is rarely discussed in history books, a softness behind the grand stories, a quiet rhythm behind the great decisions. This is the side of medieval royalty that accompanied them every single day, weaving through their tasks, shaping their thoughts, calming their minds. It was not all feasts, battles, or ceremonies. Much of it was this: slow mornings, warm chambers, the scent of wood smoke, the softness of woven fabrics, and the gentle murmur of castle life moving around them. As noon approaches, the castle grows a little brighter, filled with the light echo of footsteps and the calm hum of activity. But even then, nothing breaks the deep sense of pattern and stillness that defines this era. Servants carry trays to and from the kitchens. Couriers arrive with messages from distant towns. Knights pass through the courtyard with quiet determination, adjusting their belts and cloaks before beginning their day's duties. You walk among them like a silent observer, drifting through this world where time widens, stretches, and slows. You notice the details, the smoothness of polished stone, the soft glow of torches, the gentle rustle of wool garments as people pass one another. Everything holds a kind of warmth even in a world built on stone. As the afternoon sun filters through tall windows, the castle begins to settle into another layer of calm. People move a bit slower. Voices drop to softer tones. The heat of the day presses gently against the walls, creating a stillness that feels almost like a long, peaceful breath. And here, in this timeless silence, in this steady world of daily routines, you continue to drift deeper into the heart of medieval royal life, letting the calm, unhurried rhythm wrap softly around your thoughts. As the quiet afternoon settles into the castle, The rhythm of royal life shifts gently once again. The sun moves higher in the sky, warming the stone walls and filling the great halls with a golden, almost sleepy light. Activity continues, but in a softer, calmer pattern. Everything seems to hum at a slower pace, as though the world itself is taking a long, deep breath. Imagine stepping into the royal library, a sanctuary of wooden shelves and delicate parchment. The room smells faintly of ink, old leather, and dried herbs placed between the pages to keep insects away. Sunlight falls in bright rectangles across the floor, illuminating dust particles floating silently in the air. A scholar sits hunched over a manuscript, reading each line with deep concentration. His quill lies beside him, waiting to add notes in the margins. Every movement he makes is slow and deliberate, the turning of a page, the soft clearing of his throat, the gentle adjustment of a candle's wick. This is where knowledge lives, and it lives quietly. A princess enters the room, her steps soft on the wooden floor. She runs her fingers lightly along the spines of books, some newly copied, some older than her great-grandparents. She doesn't speak, because in this room, silence is a tradition, almost a sacred rule. She settles beside a window and opens a small book of poems, reading each verse as if the words themselves are exhaling. The entire space feels like a place where thoughts can stretch, wander, and rest. Meanwhile, in the great hall, a different scene unfolds. But even here, the calm remains. A group of tailors and seamstresses gather around large tables, working slowly on royal garments. The sound of needles slipping through fabric is soft and rhythmic. Long strands of silk glimmer in the light as they sew them into sleeves and hems. They work on a ceremonial robe for the king, layering the fabric carefully, making sure every detail falls perfectly. They work with a quiet pride, knowing that their creations will be worn in front of nobles, knights, and ambassadors from faraway lands. Nearby, the castle kitchens are beginning preparations for the evening meal. But even this space, which could easily be chaotic, holds a calm and controlled energy. The chefs move with confidence and patience. They chop vegetables with smooth, steady motions. They stir pots filled with herbs and broth, letting the aromas rise gently into the air. The crackle of the fire mixes with the soft bubbling of stew, creating a comforting background rhythm. A young kitchen helper kneads dough for bread, her hands pressing and folding the soft mass again and again, like a slow, repeating heartbeat. As the afternoon flows on, the royal gardens come alive with a different kind of quiet beauty. The air is warm, carrying the gentle scent of blossoms and wet soil. Bees drift lazily from flower to flower. A gardener trims bushes shaped into spirals and arches, his movement steady and gentle. The queen enjoys walking here, taking slow steps along the gravel path that circles a small pond. She watches the water ripple in soft patterns each time a fish rises to the surface. She touches the petals of roses with a softness that mirrors their fragility. Here, among flowers and sunlight, she finds a peace that even royal power cannot give. Beyond the garden walls, the world of common people continues with its own struggles and routines, but inside the castle, the sense of stability holds everything together. The thick stone walls keep out the noise of the town. The guards at the gates stand in quiet alertness, watching the pathways that lead into the estate. Life here is a closed circle, calm and self-contained, repeating its slow rituals day after day. The afternoon deepens, shadows growing longer across the floor. A gentle breeze slips through the open windows, carrying the coolness of distant hills. The castle feels almost like a living creature, breathing slowly, settling comfortably into the embrace of another day. And as you drift through this part of royal life, you begin to see how even in a world of kings, queens, and grand decisions, the heart of everyday existence was built on routines like these. Quiet hours, careful work, soft footsteps in long hallways. The comforting predictability of life lived within stone walls. Here, surrounded by warm light, soft sounds, and the calm unfolding of the day, the medieval world invites you to rest a little deeper, to breathe a little slower, and to let your imagination drift gently into the next chapter of this long, peaceful journey. As the warm afternoon begins to fade, the castle naturally shifts into its next rhythm, a quieter, more reflective period where everything seems to exhale. The light softens, turning from bright gold to a mellow, honey-like glow that rests gently on every stone tapestry and doorway. The day's busiest tasks are now behind the people of the castle, and what remains is a gentle winding down, like the slow closing of an ancient book. In one corner of the castle, the royal scribes begin gathering their materials. The large tables are still covered with scrolls, ink pots, and sharpened quills, but the pace of their work becomes more relaxed. A scribe carefully dries the last lines of a letter meant for a neighboring kingdom, holding the parchment up to the fading light to make sure the ink has settled evenly. Another rolls up a completed manuscript, tying it with a thin ribbon of twine. Their movements are methodical, practiced, and peaceful. This is how knowledge, decisions, and history itself are preserved for the generations that will follow. Elsewhere in the castle, the old music master prepares his instruments for the evening. He doesn't speak much. He doesn't need to. His gentle hands glide across the strings of a lute, checking each one for tune. The room around him is quiet except for the soft plucking of notes that echo faintly off the stone walls. The sound is warm, delicate, and soothing, the kind of sound that melts into the air and becomes one with the atmosphere. Soon his students begin to gather, sitting in a semicircle around him with their own simple instruments. The master nods silently, and together they begin practicing a melody meant for the evening's dinner. The tune rises gently, floats, and then dissolves again, like a candle flame flickering but never going out. Meanwhile, in the long stone corridor leading to the private chambers of the royal family, the maids move quietly from room to room. They pull open the heavy curtains to let in the last soft bit of daylight. They place fresh linens at the edge of the royal bed, smoothing the fabric carefully, making sure everything feels clean and calm. One maid lights a small oil lamp near the queen's bedside, its flame glowing with a soft amber shimmer. The room fills with the faint scent of lavender from a small cloth pouch placed beneath the pillow, a simple tradition meant to bring deep, peaceful sleep. In the training yard, the energy grows even softer. The guards who trained fiercely in the morning now settle into slow, controlled exercises. They walk in formation, adjusting their steps with precision. Their armor glints faintly in the fading light, but even the metal looks calmer now. A captain gives quiet instructions, his voice low and steady. This time of day isn't meant for battle drills. It's for discipline, balance, and mental clarity. Even warriors need moments of stillness, and in this hour they embrace it. Just outside the castle gates, merchants begin to pack up their small stalls. The cloth covers are folded, the baskets closed, and the leftover goods set aside for tomorrow. Their murmured conversations carry a tired but contented tone, as if the day's work brought enough earnings, enough stories, and enough small joys. The sound of wheels rolling over stone, the rustle of fabric, and the occasional laugh creates a cozy backdrop to the castle's slow unwinding. As the evening approaches, the sky outside transforms into soft shades of rose, amber, and lavender. The air cools, and a gentle breeze passes through the courtyards, carrying with it the scents of herbs, bread, and distant wood smoke. A few children of the servants chase one another across the grass, their laughter echoing sweetly but softly, as though even they instinctively understand that the castle is entering its calmest hours. And then, slowly, the great bell in the tower rings, not loudly, not urgently, but with a deep, warm tone that spreads like a wave through every part of the estate. It is a signal that the daytime's duties are over, and that everyone may now prepare for the evening meal. The sound vibrates gently through the corridors, through the gardens, through the very stones of the castle. It is peaceful, reassuring, and timeless. The castle breathes in harmony with the bell, its echo fading into the evening air as the people begin gathering their final thoughts, finishing their tasks, and preparing to enter another phase of this long, drifting journey through medieval life. This soft hour, this slow transition from day to evening, is one of the most soothing in the royal routine. And as the castle settles deeper into quiet, you can almost feel yourself sinking with it, relaxing, unwinding, drifting into the next chapter of this gentle historical dream. As the gentle echo of the evening bell melts into the quiet air, the castle begins shifting once again, this time preparing for one of the most cherished parts of medieval royal life, the evening meal. It is not rushed, it is not loud, and it is not grand in a dramatic way. Instead, it unfolds slowly and gracefully, like a calm river finding its way through a peaceful valley. Servants light the wall-bound torches one by one, their flames flickering softly and casting warm golden patterns across the stone corridors. The shadows move lazily, stretching long across the floor, as though they too are settling down for the night. In the great hall, the long wooden tables are already being arranged with quiet care. The surfaces, worn smooth by generations of hands, offer a sense of comforting history. The servants gently place plates, wooden cups, and simple utensils in front of each seat. There is a respectful silence in their movements, as if they understand that this slow, calm preparation is part of the castle's rhythm, a kind of nightly ritual that keeps everything grounded. The air fills with the soft aroma of roasted vegetables, freshly baked bread, and a light broth simmering in the kitchen. These smells drift through the hallways like a warm embrace, inviting everyone to unwind. In the private chambers, the queen prepares at her own pace. She chooses her evening gown, not for display, not for extravagance, but for comfort. The fabric drapes gently, the colors soft and muted, reflecting the peaceful tone of the night. Her hair is loosened from its daytime arrangement, falling naturally around her shoulders. A maid helps her place a delicate shawl over her arms, woven from fine threads that feel smooth and cool against the skin. There is no rush. Every movement is slow, gentle, and deliberate, matching the quiet hum that now fills the castle. The king, too, enters the evening mood. He sets aside the concerns of the day, the documents, the decisions, the matters of the realm, and allows himself to shift into a more peaceful state. A servant helps him change into a simple robe, its cloth soft and warm. He washes his hands in a basin of lightly scented water, the fragrance of herbs drifting faintly upward. The temperature of the water is perfect, neither warm nor cold, just soothing enough to calm the senses. His mind begins to ease, preparing for a night of rest, food, and quiet conversation. As the royal family starts moving toward the great hall, the soft sounds of their footsteps mingle with the gentle clinking of cups and plates being arranged for the final time. The musicians who practiced earlier now take their places near the back of the room. They do not play loud, celebratory pieces. Instead, they choose slow, flowing melodies, the kind that wrap around the listener like a warm blanket. A lute whispers its notes, a flute breathes softly, and the very faint rhythm of a small drum pulses like a calm heartbeat in the background. The hall begins to glow as more torches are lit, their flames swaying lightly in the gentle indoor breeze. The golden light reflects off the metal accents of the chandeliers, sending soft sparkles across the room. It is not bright. It is not overwhelming. It is warm, cozy, and tranquil, enough to make anyone feel safe and welcome. Slowly, nobles and close companions of the royal family take their seats. Their conversations are quiet, their tones low and respectful. No subject is heavy. No topic is tense. They speak of small things, the weather, a new flower blooming in the courtyard garden, the sound of the river that runs just outside the castle grounds. Soon the royal family enters the hall and everyone stands briefly to greet them. But this too is done calmly, without formality or noise. The king and queen take their seats, and the food is brought forward in simple, beautiful platters. There is tender meat cooked slowly over gentle flames. There are fresh vegetables from the castle's gardens, soft bread still warm from the oven, and a light soup fragrant with herbs harvested earlier that morning. Everything is served slowly, gracefully, with no urgency. The first few bites are taken quietly. The atmosphere feels almost sacred in its peace. The fire crackles softly in the large hearth at the front of the hall, its warm glow moving like liquid gold along the stone walls. The musicians continue their slow melody. The gentle murmur of voices fills the space like a soft lullaby. Even the youngest members of the noble families, usually full of energy, feel the calming pull of the evening and speak only in whispers. As the meal continues, the conversations become even softer. The king speaks with the queen about a dream he had last night, a dream so peaceful that it lingered with him throughout the day. The queen listens with a warm smile, her gaze kind and gentle. Their voices create a soft harmony with the music in the background. No one interrupts. No one drags the mood upward. Everything remains balanced, smooth, and hushed. The meal slowly nears its end. Servants begin clearing the plates with quiet steps, careful not to break the serene atmosphere that has settled over the room. The final course, a sweet, lightly spiced dish, is enjoyed in silence. The warmth of it spreads through the body, calming the mind even further. And when the meal is finished, the royal family stands and begins their gentle walk back through the corridors. The torches dim slightly as they pass, shadows shifting softly across the walls. The castle feels calmer than ever, resting in a deep, peaceful stillness that invites sleep to come closer. This soft transition, from daylight to evening, from duties to dinner, from activity to calm, is one of the quietest and most comforting parts of medieval royal life. And as you drift through it with them, you feel your own body loosening, your own thoughts slowing, as if you too are walking through those ancient corridors preparing for a night of deep, gentle rest. As the royal family steps away from the great hall, the castle begins to sink even deeper into its nighttime stillness. The sounds soften further, fading until only the gentle hum of torches and the distant whisper of the wind remain. The long stone corridors are now bathed in a warm, dim glow that makes every footstep seem quieter, every movement gentler, as if the walls themselves are encouraging everyone to speak softly, walk slowly, and rest deeply. The air cools just slightly, carrying with it the faint scent of burning wood and the earthy calm of a night settling over the land. The royal family walks together for a short while, moving through the spacious passageways that connect the hall to their private living quarters. The queen holds her shawl close around her shoulders, letting it trail lightly across the polished stone floor. The king walks peacefully at her side, his mind slipping away from the concerns of the court and settling into a calm space where only the night matters. The young prince follows quietly, trying to match his father's slow, steady pace. A gentle smile forms on the queen's face as she glances back at her child, noticing how the rhythm of the evening seems to soothe even the youngest members of the royal household. When they reach the heart of the royal wing, the family part ways with a soft exchange of words. The prince is guided toward his chambers by two maids who walk like shadows, their steps barely noticeable. They carry small lanterns, their flames trembling lightly as they move. The corridor leading to the prince's room feels peaceful and warm, decorated with small tapestries of gentle colors and scenes of nature. These details are meant to comfort him, to help him feel secure as the world outside grows dark. Inside his chamber, his bed waits, layered with soft furs and warm blankets. A small fire burns in the corner of the room, not too bright, not too loud, just enough to create a cozy glow that dances across the walls. The prince climbs into bed while the maids tuck the blankets around him with quiet care. One of them lights a small candle near the bedside, and the tiny flame flickers like a sleepy star. She whispers a calm goodnight before gently closing the door behind her. The prince drifts into dreams while the soft crackling of the fire keeps him company. The queen moves toward her own chambers next. Her room is vast yet filled with a quiet intimacy created by soft textures, delicate fabrics, and the subtle fragrance of dried herbs hanging near the window. A gentle breeze sneaks through the wooden shutters, brushing lightly against the curtains, making them sway like slow-moving waves. She sits at her vanity for a moment, removing her jewelry one piece at a time, each item placed carefully inside a small carved box. Her movements are slow and soothing, almost ritualistic, helping her unwind from the weight of the day. Her lady-in-waiting brings a warm basin of water infused with lavender. The queen dips her fingers into it, letting the fragrant warmth relax her hands. She washes her face gently, enjoying the calming sensation of the cool cloth pressed against her skin. For a moment, she simply closes her eyes and breathes, letting the quiet embrace her. There is something healing about these small nighttime rituals, something timeless that connects her to centuries of queens before her, who also sought peace at the end of long days. Across the corridor, the king enters his own room. His chamber has a different atmosphere, simpler, slightly darker, with heavy drapes and a strong wooden bed carved with the symbols of the kingdom. A single lantern glows beside the bed, casting long shadows across the walls. The king removes his robe and lays it neatly across a chair. He sits on the edge of his bed, takes a slow breath, and feels the tension melt away from his shoulders. He reaches for a small book on the bedside table, its pages filled with old stories and calm reflections written by kings who ruled long before him. He opens it gently, letting his eyes follow the soft flow of the handwritten letters. Meanwhile, the castle outside grows quieter still. The guards at the battlements speak in low tones, their voices blending with the night breeze. Far below, the stables settle into silence as the horses shift lazily in their stalls, rustling softly in the hay. The courtyard garden glimmers faintly under the moonlight, leaves shimmering like silver. A slow, steady calm settles over everything, like a blanket stretching across the land. Inside the queen's chamber, she finally rises and moves toward her bed. The fabrics are soft, the sheets warmed by the fire that burns gently in the corner. She brushes her hair slowly, each stroke easing her deeper into tranquility. When she lies down, the pillows cradle her head in perfect comfort. She pulls the blankets around her, letting the warmth settle against her skin. Across the hallway, the king reads a few more lines before the words blur softly into drowsiness. He closes the book, places it back on the table, and sinks into bed with a deep sigh. One by one, the lights in the royal chambers dim. First the lanterns, then the candles, until only the soft glow of the fireplace remains, a gentle guardian of the night. The wind outside hums softly against the stone walls, the sky above the castle stretching wide and quiet, sprinkled with distant stars that shine like tiny embers. And in this deepening silence, the royal family falls into their own peaceful dreams, each of them wrapped in the calm embrace of a medieval night that feels endless in its stillness. The castle breathes slowly, like a sleeping giant, holding every whisper, every footstep, every soft moment within its ancient walls. As the royal family drifts into sleep, the castle settles into a deeper silence, a kind of stillness that feels ancient and alive at the same time. The thick stone walls soften every sound, turning footsteps into distant murmurs and whispers into gentle echoes that fade almost as quickly as they form. It is the quietest hour of the night, when the world seems to pause, hovering between wakefulness and dreams. Outside, the moon reaches the height of its slow journey, casting a silver wash across the rooftops, the battlements, and the wide open fields beyond. The night sky stretches endlessly, filled with soft, shimmering stars that blink like watchful eyes over the sleeping kingdom. Deep within the castle, some areas remain quietly active, not with noise or movement, but with presence. The guards posted along the stone corridors stand with relaxed alertness, their armor muted in the dim light. They shift their weight occasionally, the soft rustle of chainmail blending with the hush of the hallway. These guards know the castle intimately, every shadow, every cold breath of air that drifts through the cracks, every small sound carried from distant rooms. They do not speak unless necessary. Their silence maintains the tranquility of the night, ensuring the peace of the royal family remains undisturbed. In the kitchens, the last embers of the great cooking fire glow faintly. Most servants left long ago, but one or two remain to finish small nighttime tasks, wiping the large wooden tables, sweeping the stone floor slowly, stacking pots neatly on the shelves. The smell of earlier meals still lingers: roasted herbs, baked bread, the earthy scent of vegetables. Now these scents blend with the faint aroma of cooling ash. A cat curls up near the warm hearth, its small body rising and falling gently as it sleeps. Even the animals seem to understand the deep calm that fills the castle tonight. In the long corridor leading toward the Queen's wing, tapestries sway gently in a soft draft that flows through a narrow window slit high above. The tapestries show scenes of old battles, peaceful forests, and ancient symbols of the kingdom's past. Their colors appear muted in the dim light, giving the hallway a dreamlike quality, as though one were walking through a memory. Every shadow stretches softly across the stone floor, moving with the flicker of torches that burn low and steady. Not far away, in one of the smaller courtyards, the fountain continues its quiet rhythm. Even at midnight, water spills gently over the carved stone edge, creating a soft trickling sound that echoes faintly through the courtyard walls. The moonlight catches the surface of the water, turning it into a sheet of shifting silver. A few birds roost in the branches of the surrounding trees, feathers fluffed, eyes closed, their bodies still except for the occasional sleepy twitch. The air here feels cool and fresh, carrying the calm scent of night-blooming flowers. In the Queen's chamber, the night deepens. Her breathing becomes slow and steady, matched by the soft crackle of the dying fire. The warm glow from the fireplace flickers over the draped curtains and polished wooden furniture, casting long shadows that sway lazily with the movement of the flames. The blankets rise and fall in a gentle rhythm as she sleeps, her face relaxed, free from the burdens of the day. Dreams weave around her like soft whispers, pulling her deeper into rest. Across the hall, the king turns slightly in his sleep, shifting from one side to the other. His room, darker and more rugged than the Queen's, holds the steady scent of burning wood and old parchment. The small embers in his hearth pulse faintly, glowing like tiny stars in the darkness. His breath is deep, each exhale blending with the quiet around him. Even in sleep there is a sense of strength, though softened by the calm of the night. On the table beside him, the closed book rests silently, its pages now still, its stories fading into the silence until morning comes again. Farther down the hall, the young prince sleeps with the complete innocence of childhood. His blankets are tucked warmly around him, and a soft toy made of stitched cloth and straw lies beside his pillow. The glow of the small candle has almost faded, leaving only the dimmest trace of light near his window. Outside that window, the moonlight spreads across the rooftops, casting a pale shimmer over the edges of the stone. The shadows of tree branches sway gently across the walls, creating patterns that seem to drift like ripples over water. The prince's dreams are light and gentle, filled with shapes and colors that blend softly in his imagination. As the castle breathes through the quiet night, even the surrounding lands settle into a deep, unbroken stillness. The village below lies in silence, its small homes dark except for a handful of windows glowing faintly. Dogs curl up near doorways, chickens roost in wooden coops, and the peaceful hum of sleeping life spreads across the countryside like a blanket of calm. The river moves slowly under the moon, its surface reflecting the sky in a long ribbon of silver. Inside the castle, time feels suspended, held in a delicate balance between the soft flicker of flames and the gentle pulse of night. Each room holds its own layer of quiet, some warm, some cool, some filled with shadows, others touched by moonlight. And through all this stillness, the presence of royalty, their breath, their dreams, their peaceful slumber, forms the quiet heart of the castle. The night deepens further, growing softer, heavier, and more serene. Nothing disturbs it. Nothing rushes it. It moves slowly, like a calm tide rising and falling, wrapping the castle in a steady rhythm that guides everyone toward deeper rest. As dawn begins its slow and gentle approach, the castle remains wrapped in a deep, hushed stillness. The sky outside is still dark, but a faint, almost invisible shade of blue stirs along the horizon, hinting that morning is quietly preparing its arrival. Yet inside these thick stone walls, night still rules, and the peace of slumber hangs softly over every corridor and chamber. The silence feels almost sacred, as if the castle itself understands the need for rest after a long day of royal duties, quiet prayers, and ancient rituals. In the Queen's chamber, the last embers in the fireplace glow faintly, giving the room a warm, amber softness. The heavy curtains block most of the early light, keeping the space dim and cocoon-like. The Queen remains deep in sleep, her breath steady and calm, rising and falling beneath layers of soft woven blankets. Beside her bed, a small wooden table holds a clay cup of cooled herbal tea from the evening, its faint scent of chamomile still lingering. The air is warm here, scented faintly with pressed linens, beeswax from the candles, and the last traces of incense that burned before she drifted off. In the king's chamber, the atmosphere is even quieter. His room is darker, with thicker stone walls and fewer windows, making the last hour before dawn seem longer and deeper. His armor stands on a wooden rack beside the wall, its metal cool and unmoving. The king sleeps heavily, shoulders relaxed, his breath deep and even. Beside him, a quill rests in an ink pot, and a rolled parchment lies on the table. Whatever he was writing late into the evening now rests untouched. The flames in his hearth have burned low, leaving only a thin line of glowing red that threads through the ashes like a sleeping serpent of light. Down the hall, the prince continues to sleep in complete innocence. The faintest bit of dawn light slips through the edge of his curtains, touching his pillow just enough to cast a soft glow on his face. But he doesn't stir. His small toy, a hand-stitched figure stuffed with wool, rests near his arm, and his blankets are tangled in the sweet, restless way children often sleep. A gentle draft moves through the window, rustling the corner of a parchment on his bedside table. The castle walls may be cold to the touch, but his little chamber remains warm and safe, holding him gently until morning comes fully. As the royal family sleeps, the castle's unseen helpers begin to stir quietly in distant corridors. A servant in the lower hall lights the first torch of the morning, the flame crackling softly as it grows stronger. In the kitchens, someone stirs the ashes in the hearth, coaxing them back into life. The sound is faint and rhythmic, a slow scraping, followed by the soft whoosh of kindling catching flame. Warmth begins to fill the room again. The first pot of water is set over the fire for morning bread, and as the water heats, steam blends softly with the cold air. Outside, within the castle courtyard, the stable boy moves slowly among the horses, whispering calm sounds to them as he checks the straw under their hooves. The horses shift lazily, their tails swishing gently, their breath forming little clouds in the cool pre-dawn air. The sky above the courtyard holds a pale hint of morning, but the moon still lingers stubbornly, glowing softly over the battlements as if unwilling to surrender the night just yet. Inside the castle corridors, the torches burn more steadily now, spreading warm pools of orange light across the stone floors. The shadows stretch long and soft, moving like silent companions alongside the servants who walk with hushed footsteps. They carry linens, polished plates, small baskets of herbs, and freshly drawn water, preparing for the tasks that will fill the day ahead. Their movements remain quiet, careful not to disturb the sleeping king, queen, or prince. The castle still belongs to the night for a little longer, and they honor that silence with their calm pace. A soft breeze moves through the upper hallway, slipping through narrow window slits and carrying with it the scent of damp stone and cool air. The tapestries lining the walls flutter gently, their threads catching the early light in small glimmers. Scenes of ancient hunts, royal feasts, and distant battles seem to shift slightly in the flickering torchlight, as if the people woven into the cloth are whispering stories to the waking day. In one of the small prayer chambers, a lone candle burns steadily, left lit overnight so that its flame might guide wandering souls and protect the dreams of the kingdom. The candle has melted halfway down its holder, wax pooled at the base, its glow soft and comforting. The quiet hum of the flame blends with the silence around it, creating a peaceful rhythm that fills the tiny chamber like a heartbeat. As dawn finally edges closer, the light grows slightly stronger, though still too faint to break through the heavy curtains of the royal rooms. The world outside prepares itself gently, river mist rising, dew forming on the grass, birds beginning to stir in their nests. But inside the castle, time still feels suspended. This delicate moment, just before the day truly awakens, is one of the most peaceful in the whole cycle of the castle's life. It is a moment when every burden, every responsibility, every royal duty still sleeps, and the walls, thick and ancient, seem to breathe slowly with the family they protect. The castle in this quiet hour feels timeless. It does not belong to one king or queen. It belongs to the passage of centuries, to all who have slept within its walls and all who will one day walk its rooms. The silence, the stone, the slow heartbeat of the night turning into morning, all of it feels like a gentle reminder that even royalty, with all their power and responsibility, must rest, must dream, must surrender to the softness of sleep. And so the night lingers for just a bit longer, holding itself gently around the king, the queen, the prince, and every soul within these ancient walls. As the night grows quieter, and the world outside your window settles into its soft stillness, let us continue our gentle journey through the long, winding story of medieval royalty. We are now drifting into the later centuries, when the Middle Ages had begun to stretch thin, like an old tapestry whose colors were slowly fading, yet still shimmering faintly in the candlelight. Imagine yourself standing in a quiet stone hallway of a royal palace. The torches along the wall burn low. Their flames sway lazily, casting soft shadows that move like slow dancers across the old stones. The air is cooler now, calmer, carrying the faint smell of wax, parchment, and fabrics worn smooth by time. Everything feels unhurried, as if the castle itself is falling into a peaceful slumber. By this time in history, royalty had begun to change. Kings and queens were no longer the untouchable figures they once were. Many of them still carried great power, yes, but their world now had more voices, more systems, more rules. Parliaments began to whisper their opinions. Councils of wealthy nobles began to push for more control. The church, too, had woven itself fully into the structure of royal life, holding its own share of authority. But despite this slow shift, inside the palace walls, the mood often remained the same as it had for centuries. There were still rituals and routines, still servants moving quietly through long corridors, still the gentle echoes of footsteps on marble floors. Royal life continued with its familiar rhythm, even as the world outside grew louder and more complicated. If you imagine a queen from this late medieval era, you might see her sitting by a tall window, her dress spreading out around her like a calm pool of color. She would still wear the heavy fabrics of earlier centuries, but the styles were changing. Gowns flowed more softly. Sleeves became long and elegant. Jewels were still worn, but in more delicate ways. She might be reading a book, or perhaps listening as someone recited poetry, their voice soft and steady in the quiet room. Kings, too, moved through their days with a mixture of old customs and new ideas. Some spent long hours speaking with advisors, discussing taxes, armies, and diplomacy. Others preferred hunting forests that had belonged to their families for generations. Many, in these later centuries, also worked to maintain peace rather than fight endless wars. They understood that keeping a kingdom calm sometimes required a gentle hand rather than a sword. And all around them, the castle remained the heartbeat of royal life. Kitchens still prepared great feasts, though by now food had grown more diverse, influenced by trade from faraway lands. Music still echoed through great halls, though instruments were evolving, becoming smoother, richer, more harmonized. Even the way people spoke began to change, as languages slowly grew closer to the ones we speak today. But the most peaceful moments, the ones you might imagine as you drift deeper into the night, happened in the early hours when most of the palace slept. Servants rested in quiet quarters. Guards leaned calmly on their spears. The great fireplaces glowed softly with fading embers. Outside, the moon hung still in the sky, brushing its silver light across rooftops and towers. If you picture a young prince or princess walking through the courtyard at this hour, you would see a peaceful scene. The gardens are calm. A water fountain trickles gently. The stone benches are cool to the touch. The leaves rustle lightly in the night air. It is the kind of moment where one might stop, breathe, and feel the long history of their family stretching behind them, like a quiet path lit by memory. Many royal families of this era still believed deeply in their sacred duty, the idea that they were chosen to guide their people, to protect their land, to maintain order. Even as the world began to shift toward a new age, this belief gave them a sense of stillness, a reason to continue, a reason to move gently and carefully through their responsibilities. And so this late medieval period becomes a bridge, a soft transition between old and new, a time when royalty still lived with centuries-old traditions, yet slowly adapted to a world that was learning to change. As we move toward the next part of this calm journey, let your mind rest on this image: a medieval castle at night, quiet, peaceful, filled with the last sighs of an age that had lasted 1,000 years. The sky above it is wide and silent, and the air around it carries only the softest whispers of time moving forward. As we continue, let yourself settle a little deeper into comfort. Breathe slowly, and imagine the medieval world entering its final centuries, like a long evening slowly fading into twilight. The kingdoms we've wandered through are still standing, their stones still strong, their towers still rising gently toward the sky. But the feel of things has begun to shift, almost like a quiet breeze passing through old corridors. Royalty was still powerful, still respected, but the world around them had become fuller, busier, more connected. Roads were expanding, trade was growing, people were learning more, reading more, questioning more. Yet inside the castles, life still moved at the slow, steady rhythm it always had. The past and the future brushed against each other softly, and the royal families lived right at that crossroads. Imagine a king from this later medieval period sitting in his study. The room is warm, lit by a large hearth on the far wall. Shelves of manuscripts line the space, their faint scent of ink and parchment floating through the air. The king is older now, perhaps with silver in his beard, his expression thoughtful rather than fierce. He spends his hours reading letters from other kingdoms, discussing agreements with his counselors, or simply reflecting on the challenges of ruling a land that is becoming more complex with every passing year. Yet, even with the world opening up, kings still found comfort in familiar traditions. They held morning audiences, where people from across the realm came to share concerns. They visited villages and towns on slow, ceremonial processions. They listened to music played on lutes and harps, the soft melodies drifting across the hall like warm threads of sound. These gentle routines kept their lives anchored, even as everything else slowly transformed. Now imagine a queen in this same era. She walks through her private garden, a cloak wrapped lightly around her shoulders. The air carries the fresh scent of herbs, roses, and damp earth. She moves unhurriedly, her footsteps soft on the stone paths. Her days, like the king's, are filled with both duty and quiet ceremony. She supervises the training of young noblewomen. She manages the palace's daily functioning. She corresponds with rulers and noble families in other lands. And on peaceful evenings she might sit with her children, telling them old stories passed down through generations of royalty. This was a time when royal children grew up with a gentle balance of strict discipline and soft guidance. They were taught languages, manners, diplomacy, but they also played in the courtyards, chased each other through corridors, and listened to lullabies sung by their nurses. Their childhoods felt like a world within a world, structured, yet protected, controlled, yet serene. The castle itself remained the heart of royal life. Even as new ideas and influences came from beyond the borders, the castle walls held steady, like a mountain standing quietly through centuries of weather. People still gathered in great halls for feasts, though the food was slowly becoming more refined. The dishes carried new spices from faraway places, cinnamon, cloves, black pepper, and the flavors added a soft warmth to the meals that filled the long wooden tables. The sounds of the castle also remained familiar. The slow clinking of metal goblets, the gentle footsteps of servants, the murmurs of advisors deep in conversation, the soft rustling of tapestries in a draft of cool night air. Even animals played their part in this atmosphere. Horses stamped lightly in the stables. Dogs lay curled near the hearth. Birds perched on high window ledges, watching life unfold with calm curiosity. And as the age of night slowly began to fade, their presence in royal courts became more symbolic, more peaceful. Instead of riding to constant battles, Many spent their time training younger generations in honorable conduct, storytelling tales of chivalry or standing guard in ceremonial halls. Their armor, once used in harsh battles, now gleamed quietly under the soft glow of torches. The world outside the castle walls kept evolving, but inside, the feeling was timeless. Royal evenings often ended with slow walks across the battlements. Kings and queens would look out over their lands, the moonlight spreading across fields, rivers, and distant villages. It was a moment of reflection, a reminder of how much had changed over the centuries, and how much had stayed exactly the same. As the breeze gently touched their robes, and the night sky stretched over them like a peaceful blanket, perhaps they felt the same soft wonder that you might feel now, listening to these calming stories. A sense that time flows gently, even across the greatest of empires. A sense that every era, no matter how powerful or grand, eventually settles into quietness. And as the medieval world approached its end, royalty stood at the border of that change, not with fear, but with steady calm. They had lived through 1,000 years of shifting customs, rising kingdoms, and fading traditions. And now they watched the next chapter of history slowly preparing itself on the horizon. As we drift into the next chapter, let your breathing slow down, let your shoulders loosen, and imagine time moving forward, gently, like a slow river winding through the last centuries of the medieval age. The castles still stand, their stones firm and familiar. The royal halls still echo with footsteps and soft conversations. But something in the air feels different now. A quiet sign that the world is preparing for change. Royal life continued, but it carried a softer, more introspective tone. Kings and queens were no longer just warriors or rulers. They had become caretakers of traditions that had lasted for generations. Imagine a king from this era sitting at a polished wooden table, sunlight drifting through tall windows. He is surrounded by scrolls and parchment, not weapons. His crown rests beside him, untouched for the moment. His face is calm, thoughtful, lined with years of responsibility but softened by experience. His work now is diplomacy, peace agreements, and thoughtful decisions meant to guide his kingdom through changing times. Yet the routines of royal life still followed the same gentle rhythm. Morning prayers, quiet council meetings, long afternoons spent listening to advisors or reviewing letters from distant lands, evenings passed in peaceful rituals, warm dinners, soft music from the court musicians, slow walks in torch-lit corridors. Royalty still moved with grace, their lives marked by ceremony, but the world around them had begun to beat to a quieter drum. Queens of this era held great calm authority. Picture a queen seated in her private solar, the warm glow of candles surrounding her. She embroiders slowly, each stitch rhythmic and deliberate. Beside her, a young lady in waiting reads aloud from a handwritten book. The queen listens, her face relaxed, her hands moving gently across the fabric. Outside the window, the gardens lie still, the roses resting in evening light, the air carrying the faint scent of lavender. Her influence stretched far, into education, family arrangements, diplomacy, but her presence was soft, steady, and deeply respected. Royal children lived in a world halfway between tradition and new learning. Tutors taught them arithmetic, languages, and good manners. But they also learned music, storytelling, and the art of quiet conversation. Their days unfolded with a slow grace, morning lessons, midday meals with the queen, and evenings spent listening to gentle stories about kings and queens long gone. Nights were calm, filled with candlelight and quiet footsteps in the corridors, the castle settling into silence like a great creature going to sleep. The great halls of the castles also evolved. The feast became more refined, the entertainment more peaceful. Instead of rough outdoor tournaments, royalty enjoyed poetry readings, musical performances, and soft dances. A group of lutenists might sit near the hearth, their fingers plucking gentle notes that floated through the hall like drifting feathers. Servants moved with quiet efficiency, placing food on long wooden tables. Roasted meats, warm bread, spiced fruits, and delicately prepared stews. The aromas filled the hall with comfort rather than grandeur, giving the space a home-like calmness. Even the castle architecture took on a warmer feel. Large windows allowed more light to enter. Fireplaces became broader and more inviting. Tapestries grew more colorful, depicting peaceful forests, rivers, and scenes of daily life. Courtyards were designed with fountains, herbs, and soft walking paths where queens could stroll in the evenings and kings could sit with advisors under lantern-lit arches. And although the age of knights was fading, a gentle echo of chivalry remained. Knights of this later period were more like peaceful guardians than fierce warriors. They focused on protecting the castle, assisting in ceremonies, or teaching the next generation about honor and patience. Their armor hung mostly in the armory now, polished for tradition's sake, but rarely used. In the quiet hours of dusk, you might imagine a knight standing watch at the gate, his figure calm, unmoving, framed by the orange glow of torches. The world beyond the castle continued to grow. New ideas, new discoveries, new inventions. But inside, life remained rooted in slowness and familiarity. Royalty walked through their days with deliberate calm, aware that they were witnessing the gentle ending of an age that had lasted 1,000 years. There was no rush, no urgency, only a steady acceptance that time was turning its next page. In the soft evenings, kings and queens sometimes stood together on the highest balcony. The wind carried an old, comforting chill. The land stretched out below them, villages glowing with small lights, forests dark and still, rivers reflecting the moon. They would speak quietly, reflecting on the long history behind them and the unknown future waiting ahead. There was a warmth in these moments, a quiet understanding that eras come and go. But the human heart, with its hopes and fears and dreams, remains gentle and familiar across centuries. As the night deepens around you, let this peaceful image stay with you. The era is shifting, but the calmness remains. And whenever you're ready, we'll continue to the next part of this soft, slow journey through the last chapters of medieval royalty. As the night grows deeper around us, let's step softly into another part of the royal world, a place where power did not shout or shine but moved gently, quietly, like a breeze through heavy curtains. This is the world of royal politics, not the loud battles or dramatic conquests, but the silent, almost invisible decisions that shape the lives of kings, queens, and all who lived under their rule. And in this calm, sleep-friendly journey, we will wander slowly through those halls of influence, understanding how royalty guided their kingdoms with patience, ritual, and carefully chosen words. Chosen. Imagine a council chamber at dusk. The long wooden table is polished, its surface glimmering under the soft glow of candles. Around it sit a handful of trusted advisors. Their voices are calm, never raised. They speak in slow, measured tones, choosing every word with care. At the head of the table sits the king, not a warrior now, but a thoughtful listener. His hands rest gently before him, his face steady and composed. He listens more than he speaks, absorbing each piece of advice as if gathering threads to weave into a cloak of decisions. This is how most medieval politics really worked, not through mighty clashes, but through quiet conversations. Long meetings where tea or warm wine was poured, where parchment maps lay rolled open, where everyone leaned forward slightly, as though sharing secrets with the room itself. Decisions unfolded slowly, with pauses, whispers, and thoughtful silence. The goal was not excitement, it was stability, peace, continuity, the kind of soft governance that helped people sleep safely each night. Queens also shaped politics, though often in gentler, behind-the-scenes ways. Picture a queen walking through her private gallery in the afternoon light. She stops beside a window, a letter in her hands. The parchment is sealed with wax, bearing the symbol of a nearby kingdom. She reads slowly, her gaze thoughtful. She knows that her response, carefully worded, polite, calm, could strengthen alliances, ease old tensions, or open doors for future agreements. Her influence is subtle but powerful, carried not by authority alone, but by grace, intelligence, and quiet confidence. Many queens used social gatherings as their political stage. They would host soft, serene gatherings in the solar or garden courtyard. Instead of loud feasts, these were gentle meetings where music played softly in the background, candles flickered, and nobles spoke with lowered voices. The queen listened closely, guiding conversations in subtle directions. A kind gesture, a well-timed compliment, a soothing reassurance. These tiny actions could shape alliances more effectively than swords. Royal marriages themselves were political bridges. A princess might travel hundreds of miles to marry a prince from another land, carrying with her the hopes of peace between two kingdoms. The journey was slow, filled with quiet anticipation. The wedding ceremonies were layered with symbolism. The exchange of gifts, the joining of families, the blessings offered by priests. And though these unions served political purposes, they often grew into warm companionships over time, creating households where affection softened duty. Diplomats played their role too. They were the quiet messengers of the medieval world, traveling between castles, delivering letters wrapped in silk or tied with ribbon. Their conversations were gentle, their movements patient. They brought news, clarified misunderstandings, and carried back responses, all with a calm formality that kept peace like a delicate cloth woven from careful negotiation. Inside the castle walls, even disagreements happened with care. When nobles argued, they did so in restrained voices. When proposals were rejected, they were declined with respectful phrasing. Everything followed a rhythm of courtesy, tradition, and ritual. It was understood that the kingdom's harmony depended on the calmness of its rulers, and that every word spoken carried weight. Behind all this, the royal scribes recorded decisions with quiet devotion. Picture them seated beside small windows, quill pens moving gracefully over parchment. Their writing was smooth, almost meditative. They kept the memory of the kingdom, agreements, laws, plans, and events, ensuring that nothing was lost to time. Their work gave politics a sense of order, turning thoughts into records and moments into history. Perhaps the most peaceful moments of medieval politics came in the late evenings. A king might retire to his private chamber, the fire crackling gently in the hearth. An advisor would read aloud the final letters of the day. The sound of the words would blend with the soft hiss of burning logs. Decisions would be postponed until morning. The night would settle around the throne like a calm blanket, allowing both rulers and kingdom to rest. In this quiet world of slow decisions and gentle influence, politics was not a battlefield. It was a conversation, a patient dance of words, gestures, and traditions. And royalty, moving through these rituals with steady hearts, shaped their kingdoms not through force but through a deep desire for peace, continuity, and balance. As you breathe slowly, as you let your thoughts drift, hold this image in your mind. A long candlelit table, soft voices, patient agreements, and a calm kingdom resting under the guidance of rulers who understood the beauty of quiet power. Let us drift gently now into another layer of medieval royalty, a place where life unfolded through slow rituals, thoughtful routines, and small moments of calm. Royalty may sound grand and loud in stories, but in truth, much of their daily life was quiet, measured, and deeply shaped by tradition. Imagine yourself walking softly through their halls at dawn, when the castle is still stretching awake, and feel how peaceful their world could sometimes be. The day often began long before the sun rose. Picture a royal chamber bathed in the faintest early light. The thick curtains are still partly drawn, letting in only a cool hint of morning air. A servant enters quietly, carrying a small lantern. She moves with soft steps, careful not to disturb the stillness. She prepares warm water in a basin, laying out fresh linen, smoothing wrinkles with gentle hands. These early rituals were not rushed. Everything happened slowly, giving the morning a tender, unhurried beginning. Soon the king or queen would awaken. Their first moments of the day were filled with calm silence. They might sit by the window, watching the sky brighten. Sometimes they whispered a prayer. Sometimes they simply breathed deeply, letting the quiet settle in their bones. Dressing was a ritual in itself, layer after layer of fabric, each carefully placed. The textiles were soft, embroidered with symbols of family and faith. Every piece had meaning. Every gesture carried a sense of continuity. Breakfast was also serene. Forget the grand feasts often shown in films. Mornings were simple. A piece of warm bread, a cup of herbal tea, a small slice of cheese or fruit. They ate slowly, often in the company of just a few trusted attendants. Outside, the sound of the courtyard slowly came to life. A stable boy leading horses out, a pair of guards exchanging quiet greetings, a cook stirring a pot over the kitchen fire. These gentle sounds formed the background music of royal mornings. As the sun lifted higher, the day took shape through a pattern of meetings, prayers, letters, and gentle conversations. Royalty rarely rushed anywhere. They walked through the corridors with steady steps, robes trailing softly behind them. Along the way, they greeted servants with nods, paused to admire tapestries, or stood for a moment near sunlit windows, their thoughts drifting across the fields beyond the castle walls. Many hours were spent listening, an art that required patience. Advisors came in with reports. Messengers delivered letters from distant lands. Priests shared spiritual guidance. Every voice was heard with calm attention. Royalty were expected to remain composed, even when hearing troubling news. Their stillness was part of their power. Their quiet presence reassured those who served them, like a steady flame that did not flicker even in the wind. Afternoons often brought a gentler rhythm. Imagine the queen walking slowly through her private garden. Roses, herbs, lavender, small fountains singing softly. She touches the petals with delicate fingers, breathes in the calm scent of earth and flowers. These garden walks were not just leisure. They were moments of peace in a world full of responsibility. The king, too, might spend time in reflection, reading from manuscripts, practicing a measured form of exercise, or meeting tutors who helped him study history, languages, and philosophy. Learning was lifelong. Reflection was essential. Then came the ritual of supper, more formal but still gentle compared to the feasts of celebration. Torches flickered along the stone walls. A musician played a soft melody in the corner. The royal family sat at a long table, but they ate in a composed manner, speaking in low voices, sharing thoughts of the day. Even the clinking of goblets seemed soft in this atmosphere, controlled and harmonious. And finally, as night settled, the castle returned to calm. Lamps were dimmed. Footsteps became quieter. The king or queen might sit once more by a fire, letting the warmth relax their thoughts. A servant would bring warm wine, scented with herbs. Letters would be opened, read, and set aside. The quiet of the evening wrapped around the room like a gentle blanket. A soft prayer often ended the day, asking for peace, protection, and restful sleep. These rituals, slow, comforting, rooted in tradition, were the heartbeat of medieval royalty. They gave shape to the days, turning responsibility into rhythm and leadership into a kind of quiet poetry. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was loud. Power lived not only in the throne room, but in every calm gesture, every thoughtful conversation, every moment of stillness. As you breathe gently now, imagine yourself in one of those chambers, the fire crackling softly, the curtains swaying ever so slightly, the world settling into sleep. This is the calm world of royal daily life. Steady, grounded, peaceful. Let us continue, John, drifting deeper into the gentle world of medieval royalty. We have walked through their halls, their gardens, their rituals. And now, as the night grows even softer, we step into the quietest and most hidden part of royal life. The world of private moments of companionship, of love expressed not through grand passion, but through small gestures, warm glances, and calm closeness. In stories, kings and queens are shown surrounded by drama, desire, and intense emotions. But the truth is far gentler. Most royal relationships were shaped by duty first, and affection grew slowly, like a candle's flame becoming warmer over time. Imagine a royal couple sitting at the end of a long day, not as rulers, but simply as two human beings who have carried the weight of the world on their shoulders. The room is dim, lit only by soft amber lanterns. The heavy curtains are drawn, The air feels still and comforting. The queen removes her jewelry one piece at a time, placing each item carefully on a velvet cloth. The king loosens the ties of his cloak, letting it fall softly on a chair. These small, shared routines created a sense of calm intimacy, a quiet reminder that despite the crown, they were still people who needed comfort, warmth, and companionship. Sometimes they spoke in gentle voices, sharing the little things they could not say in the busy daylight. A worry that had weighed on the mind, a simple thought from the morning, a memory that made them smile, and sometimes they didn't speak at all. They simply sat together near the fire, letting the silence between them feel soft and peaceful. In a world where everyone wanted something from them, this was the one place where they could just be. And yes, there were tender moments too, the kind that made the long days easier to bear. A slow touch on the hand, a warm embrace, a quiet word spoken only for one heart to hear. These moments were not fiery or loud. They were gentle, slow, full of trust. The kind of closeness that lets the mind finally relax. Medieval life was hard, tiring, and heavy, but love, even in royal rooms, gave the night a sweetness no feast or crown could offer. Now imagine the final minutes before sleep, the queen resting her head on soft linen, the king lying beside her, calm and still. Outside, the castle settles into deep silence. Torches fade. Guards walk quietly along the walls. The world grows dark and safe and peaceful. The last sound they hear is the soft crackle of the dying fire. A warm glow flickers on the stone wall, moving gently like a lullaby of light. Their thoughts slow. Their breathing becomes steady. And for a moment, everything feels lighter, easier, as if time itself has softened. And now, my dear listener, as you follow this quiet path, let the peace of their world wrap around you too. Let the soft rhythm of their evening settle into your heart. Feel how their gentle rituals, their slow conversations, their quiet closeness, all create a sense of deep rest. As you lie there breathing calmly, imagine the warm glow of a medieval lantern beside you. Imagine the cool night air outside the stone window. Imagine the quiet footsteps fading in the distance. This is your moment to let go, your moment to drift, your moment to breathe softly. And if your eyes are growing heavy now, that's completely fine. If your thoughts are slowing, let them. If sleep feels close, welcome it. Let the calm of medieval nights guide you gently into rest. Let the stillness of old royal chambers cradle your mind. Let the softness of this story settle in your heart like warm light.